Sweetheart? Sweetie? Is this one of those extremist channels? Welcome back to AMTV News. I'm your anchor, Topher Morrison. It's Tuesday, March 5th, 2013. The Fed's trillion-dollar hot shot of heroin. I mean, the markets are high as a kite. There's almost nothing as benighted as the cliche of drugs. But the idea behind drugs is simple, right? The contentment you and I achieve through industry, prudence, and thrift, others can achieve through shortcuts. With drugs like bailouts, zero interest rate policies, and quantitative easing, the well-connected achieve euphoria, a cheap and unsustainable substitute for contentment. I know, but that is our economy. The fact that our markets are floating on an ocean of manufactured liquidity is not news. You know that. The news is how it will be all unloaded. Going step by step, it's affecting our economy from top to bottom. The Christian Science Monitor, for instance, reported the federal tax revenue could reach $2.4 trillion, the highest in the U.S. history. This year, it seems odd because the CBO predicts the tax revenue will be 16% of GDP. Now, since 1973, that percentage has been roughly 18%. So, my math's not all that great, but considering we have pretty much had anemic growth for the last 4 years, if not negative growth at some points, how do we get so high? Could it be Ben Bernanke's salubrious syringe? Some people say no, some people say yes. Some, nay many, suggest, however, there is nothing in the data that shows inflation or even an asset bubble. However, all one needs to do is look at the stock market, compare all its all-time highs with how it compares with the unadulterated sound money known as gold, add in the skyrocketing cost of other, albeit temperamental, but well-established indicators. You know what I'm talking about. Gas as high as $6 in some parts of the country, and you start to realize there are a few more holes in the remain calm, we're growing ourselves out of this narrative. Speaking of holes, Business Insider reported that the Fed is preparing for a PR nightmare. Like I said, as the Fed unloads its balance sheet, when the ZIRP fever has subsided and the recessionary malady known as high interest rates takes its place, and lower remittances wipe out the current $100 billion a year paid to the U.S. Treasury, where will the economy and our trust be with the Federal Reserve then? Lance Roberts of Talk Street Live had this to say. Since Q4 of 2008, the real economy has grown over the last 4 years by $193 billion per year, or roughly about 1.5%. During the same period, the Fed has injected roughly $5 for each dollar's worth of economic growth. This can hardly be considered a great return on investment. I couldn't agree with you more. That's how dependent we are, though. Unemployment isn't even expected to broach 6% until 2017. Anyways, that is why the drug analogy is so apropos. Silly Americans, these are designer drugs, not fit for the ignorant rabble. It's for big banks hauling in record profits and all the while facilitating the current worldwide corporate merger bonanza from the UK to LA in the attempt by the next crisis to ring everyone together on the world's largest daisy chain of too big to fail life rafts. Bottom line is, our markets are saturated. They are totally disconnected from the fundamentals which traditionally drive the economy.
But it doesn't matter because it's so disconnected from the regular economy now. The Dow's back to an all-time high. Jobs have not recovered. The job market has not recovered its losses from the recession. The wages have not recovered all the way. Regular household income has not recovered from the recession. Home prices haven't recovered. There are more than 10 million Americans, maybe 14 million Americans, still underwater on their houses. So there's so many different ways that the Dow being at a new high means nothing to people, and that's all separate from the Dow itself, which is this weird kind of anachronism. It's like 30 companies, Coca-Cola and some companies we all know, but it really doesn't reflect the broader economy very well.
So, as Senator Elizabeth Warren has effectively pointed out, there is zero accountability on Wall Street. The reforms of yesteryear didn't do a goddamn thing. And to flip a common phrase on its head, not only are these banks and financial institutions evidently too big to fail, they're too big to grow our economy. Unfortunately, our savers and our children are picking up the tab. Capturing every corner of the alternative media, watch AMTV News Monday through Friday, follow me on Twitter, and like us on Facebook using the links below, and find all of our source links and more videos like these at amtvmedia.com or greenwave.com, both part of the AMTV network, the voice of independence.